Mental health problems are an extremely personal thing too, you know. It's like, I don't mind being open about it with certain people, like my friends or family or stuff. Or even people I meet sometimes, I tell them into our friendship, at a certain point into our friendship, I tell them about my problems, but I feel kind of weird about telling, like being on camera, talking about my problems to people I don't know. I don't know. It's personal in your life. It's not like a broken leg. Like sometimes they say they compare it to a broken leg, you know, you just take your medication or whatever. Or diabetes, they say it's like diabetes, you just take your medication, but it's not the same thing. Mental illness affects your whole life.
One thing, it's your whole life, it's your whole self. It could go one way or the other. It could somehow.
Are we telling our story or are we not? No, we could say it's not that we don't want to be recognized. It's not the only reason. It's because there's one of the things we want to tell them is that there's a stigma waiting for them.
No, it kind of is.
But I find that I think one thing is that it's different for everybody. That's the problem.
Well, I just thought it was all bullshit.
But for me, see, my particular type of psychosis is there's a lot of mania involved. So I was high, so I was having a great time, and they came and ruined it all. So.
I was being lied to by everyone. Everybody had something to prove against me. Like, does that make sense? To prove against me. Some kind of grudge that they had against me. It was all coming into light.
Who came and ruined it?
Well, this is psychiatry.
Okay.
I was like a mystic artist type. I was traveling a lot. I was having a great time. I didn't have any possessions. I was religious. It was an amazing time of life. I still remember it vividly. And it was 20 years ago, you know. And I felt cheated. I felt like they were taking away my strength by giving me the pills and forcing me to take them. And I resented them for that. Yeah. Actually, you know, to be quite honest, the worst part of mental illness is the aftermath. It's not the psychosis. Well, in my case, like my psychosis was like mania, so it felt really good.
You're in it, so
yeah.
So you don't
no, but it's also an intense experience. It's a beautiful experience in some ways. The worst part of mental illness is the years after, where you're in the aftermath. You're alone. All your friends have deserted you. If you're lucky, you still have your family. But I mean, a lot of my family had gone out west, or to Ontario, and you just have to fend for yourself, basically. That's the hard part. You have to fend for yourself. You're alone, and there are resources out there, but you feel really alone.
A lot of people would like, hey, I'd like to have that, whatever you got.
So the turmoil.
You can't turn it off, though.
The turmoil then wasn't.
Generally was positive.
But the turmoil wasn't the fact that you were psychotic. It was the fact that you had to fit in with the rest of the world, being how you were.
No,
and
the
rest
turmoil
of the world
was
didn't
psychotic.
understand.
Because I wasn't getting along with anybody too, you know. Like, it was turmoil is both the state of that you're in, and if you want to be alone, no one can stop you.
Well, what are some of the things that other people could say that could be disturbing?
Just the regular things that are associated with the stigma. There's nothing wrong with you. Once you look normal, you're able to function normally. What they don't see is what's underneath. Maybe on the outside you can function normally, but underneath there's still turmoil. Lots of turmoil. So even if you try to pretend that it's not there, it doesn't exist, it's still going to creep back up. So the best way is to confront it head on and just face your problems instead of pretending that it's not there just because of what other people might be thinking.
So how you do that?
With a lot of mental training, a lot of self-reassurance, and talking to yourself is the only way you can do it. Is to just keep talking to yourself, thinking, and self-reassurance.
So what you tell to yourself?
Well, you know, just doesn't matter what they're saying, you know. Yes, it hurts, but it goes away afterwards.
Yeah.
What's happened to you?
I feel like somebody's taking my thoughts away from me or something.
With
Or-
yeah.
Like, that's one, I mean, even now I find it a bit hard to accept that I have an illness because it is part of who I am. It is part of me. So why should I be medicated against a part of me?
The feeling that I wasn't in control of my mind.
Okay.
Out of control, I couldn't control it.
Like I would take long walks. It was I got out right before Christmas and the first time in January I would, in the freezing weather, I would walk like at least a mile to a certain place and then a mile back. And I would do that every day before supper. You have to really motivate yourself to do stuff.
Yeah.
Exercise.
I don't get any immediate satisfaction, you know. That's why I like riding my bike, because I get there, I get
Go
the exercise and I go faster. And when I'm riding my bike, my mind is occupied, because it has to be. I have to look and make sure I'm not going to go over any bumps or holes or anything like that. And I find my mind is occupied when I'm riding my bike, so I really enjoy it. Walking's tough because it's boring, you know. Maybe some other people might have different methods. Swimming, you know, if you go swimming, it takes you away from reality for a couple of hours. I think that's important, is if you can escape reality, your reality for a couple of hours every day, that you're doing pretty well.
How are they there for you though?
Well, they spend time with me, and that's enough, really. You know, there's a lot of prejudice out there. It's like some people. I remember they did a study. They found that most people with mental illness are actually find the prejudice or the stigma harder to take than the illness. Yeah. Do you have another granola bar?
What?
But I guess you can say emergency room psychiatry, I guess you would call rock bottom. I guess everybody can agree with that, my guess. Everybody's first day in psychiatry, I guess, would be close to the same. Deplorable. Lousy doctors. Might be worse for women, but who knows.
Breathe.
Once you were admitted to a psychiatric ward, your life changes so drastically. There you will have to learn to live a double life because of the stigma society lays on psych patients. Fair or not, that's the way the ball bounces. Anyone ever heard the expression mock what you do not understand? Is the best way I can describe normal society's view of mental illness. The double life will almost start immediately, maybe a few days, but it does, I promise. From stories I've heard from current inpatients to outpatients, knowing about 200 in all, the lies start very quickly, some faster than others, but it happens. Like in my case, the lies started very quickly, even on the first day of admission, actually. I had great close personal friends who have helped me through life's admission, but I started to lie the very first day. Because who wants to see their friends die? Their friend when you were chained to a bed 6 ways from Sunday. Then 12 hours a day, it's 7 to 10 days a week. The lies started so quickly, I had my parents lie to my friends because I was too doped up for at least a month. After discharge from the ward, the lies spread like wildfire. Your close friends and parents get half-truths or close to it. More likely more, but not everything. I heard a quote from Las Vegas once in a book or a movie, I'm not sure. But if you can't lie to strangers, who can you lie to? Or maybe another quote, you can be anyone you want to be. Admission either A, turns you into the most honest person in the world, and I've never met that person, or one hell of a good liar, which is everybody I've ever met. Example, when you meet someone new, or a lady in my case, you can hide your skeletons for so long, eventually the question what you do for a living will be asked. In my case, I can't say I hold numerous jobs. I'm fighting to control ADHD. I am bipolar. A walking pharmaceutical guinea pig. A walking pharmaceutical guinea pig. Oh, let's not forget the half-time job of being psychotic. And a huge job once in a while, fighting the urge to kill myself. Imagine the look I would get from that lady. People say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I bet the look I get would be closer to 10,000. Then the lie starts to get worse. You can be anyone you want to be at that particular point. Then becomes the hard part, remembering the lies and the half-truths you have told everyone. At that point, it is really hard, but as time goes on, you get better. Unless you chose option A, more power to you if you did. But if you're option B, which is most, that, my friends, is what's called living with mental illness and psychiatric stigmas.
Is suicide really an option?
No, not for me, but well, for me, because I've experienced the highs and the lows in life.
Right.
I've attempted 4 times, so,
Okay.
and I've had my stomach pumped 3 times. So,
In a way, the stigma of being on welfare is almost worse than the stigma of mental illness, you know?
What he called the double life. He said the moment you were diagnosed, something changed forever. And then there is 2 lives, your real life and the one that you have to invent somehow. Because if you actually say to people what is going on, they may take it wrong, they may...
One thing that what I do is I tell them I'm an artist. So, because everyone lives a double life anyways. You don't reveal who you really are to people you don't know very well.
that's exactly it. That's my point. And even friends, you can't do it exactly.
Well,
You
close
know.
friends you can though. Close friends you can tell.
Well, half-truths or what, you know.
I don't. My close
Even
friends know.
family.
But the local...
Like, do you want that, or do you want to remain? Like, that's the thing.
It's a personal choice.
Yeah. And sometimes people are intrusive. Like they ask you personal questions that they shouldn't be asking you. You know, like whether or not you're married, or whether or not what your job is. What do you, even that job, what do you do for a living? That's a pretty personal question. You know.
Everybody asks that
stranger.
question.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the first or
Well,
second
yeah,
question.
but
I
you
ask.
don't necessarily have to answer it.
My name is Mike, Mango Mike. They gave me this name because it's mangoes I like. I slice them, I dice them, I juice them, I savor them. To be really quite clear, I simply devour them. I begin my day with a large slice or 2, and quickly progress and start dicing a few. By mid-afternoon, my cravings are back, and I find myself having a mango attack. I quickly start juicing this succulent fruit. It's nature's own candy, right down to the root. My supper's arrived, and it's really quite nice. But where are those mangoes? I need another slice. Waiting to unwind, wanting to turn back the hands of time. We stroll through our days, unaware of many things, yet meanwhile, history continues to be written. This complicated planet spins rapidly at 35,000 miles per hour, weaving and braiding our minds with simple logic. Subjects we should comprehend, but instead we descend into medieval topics. So embrace the world in which you are surrounded, then light a fire and dance around it, because echoes of laughter ring out through the night, emitting good vibes and spreading delight. I don't know, because when I wrote it I was feeling good. They were giving me medication, you know, and I wasn't depressed at the time. And there was so much leisure time, didn't know what to do.
I think there is a lot of hope and a lot for you can't get cured, but you can recover. That's what I would say. So that's all we can define it as. We can't define what recovery is, just what it is. We have to define what it means for us.
You? Yeah.
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 Recovery would be like, for me, it would be like being able to live relatively free of quote-unquote symptoms, and
Maintaining positive thinking, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Being sober. But in all theory, you're never going to be totally recovered. So it's like a 12-step program. You're in recovery for the rest of your life.
Always feel
Recovering.
symptoms.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're recovered.
But it's like having
Symptoms-
cancer, you know, like
symptoms
you,
if you're happy,
you're in
feeling
remission.
pain, or just feeling happy in general.
Ecstatic union of thought. Happiness.
Yeah.
Look at your watch and say, well, I'm in a state of euphoria. I haven't slept since Wednesday. But I'm having a great time doing it, you know. But
And happiness is not the same thing as ecstasy, which I was talking
Yeah.
about. Happiness and ecstasy are not the same thing. Happiness is like a state of contentment,
Yeah.
where you're kind of,
Okay.
you're happy to be alive and being
Yeah.
quote unquote productive or whatever.
Mhm.
But ecstasy is something that you get either from psychiatric illness or a drug or. I think basically I call it self-therapy. You have to therapeutize yourself. You can't count on psychiatry or psychology to do it for you.
It has nothing to do with being creative. It's just like you don't feel as much of a range of emotion as you would if you weren't on your pills.
Well, I remember
Basically, what
Sorry.
for me, it's like when your emotions are out of whack. That's what happens to me.
Right.
Like I react violently, or screaming and yelling, just for any little thing that gets on my nerves. It's just like every little thing, and I come to bizarre conclusions. Like I could come up with the end of a scenario. Like it'll create like certain events will be taking place, and I'll create another scenario and a different ending for the future.
But like my doctor said, I said to him, when I'm on the medication, I have less drive, I have less creativity, and I'm less me. He says that's probably true. Creativity is like there's a big accent in psychiatry about being therapeutic, but it's more than that though. It's not just therapeutic.
Healing?
It's growth. It's personal growth. It's
Yeah.
not just
What's the
therapeutic.
difference?
Well, because you can make art your life, like you can make it like your métier or your profession.
Right.
So it's not just therapeutic. Therapeutic is like I don't know, like art therapy. I don't know. I have a problem with it. I'm not quite sure how to pinpoint it. But I find that art therapy is they just see it as their art as a therapy, not as anything more. And it's bigger than that. In a way it's a way to make us productive. Like we're seen as non-productive. We're on welfare. We're not doing anything. And it's a way to get us to be more productive. I have a problem with that. This is a way, and in a way it infantilizes us. That's what I find. I find that they take us. They say, no, in fact, they say, well, at least you're good for something. You can do art. At least mentally, you're good for something. They can do art.
Is that
I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
I've done a few art openings, and not many, except for one of them, hardly anybody came. So it's like, it's good to have other people's opinion. What I'm saying to you is lose the delusion of grandeur. Is it important though that
Is
that important?
connect
I don't know.
with a lot of people?
Would it be? For me, it is, because I don't know. I need to hear people's opinions. I need to get. Like I did a whole other movie just watching some people. I was showing some friends some movies, and just from what they told me about this one movie, I was able to make a whole other one. Just based on their critiques, their reactions. I was able to make a similar type movie, but improved, exactly. So what they were saying was more in your face and more prevalent.
You have to do your art, and I have both ideas. Like regardless of other people's opinions of it, but at the same time, it's good to have feedback and it's good to connect with people. No, it's not that. It's a visceral thing. Like I was feeling physically sick from painting on the weekend, and so I'm just not gonna go there anymore. That's all. I was feeling mentally unwell, mentally and physically unwell. So that's life. I have other artistic stuff. I mean, yesterday I wrote 5 poems, and this morning I wrote another one.
I'm trying to quit smoking. Yeah. Smoked half a pack the other day, 6 cigarettes yesterday, 4 today.
Thinking can get you depressed too when you do too much of it. But being driven is also bad because well, in my case, because it makes you feel physically and mentally sick, and then you get tired of it. Pathetic fallacy. It's a rainy day today. Even the lavender, lilacs, and bloom are weeping. That's one. And this one's called In the Room. In the room, in the dark, the candle flickers. Your eyes melt along with the wax. Tears drop.
But it's hard to know what caused me to stop writing. So,
Did you lose interest?
yeah, I've lost interest. I don't feel like reading, I don't feel like writing, I don't feel like doing anything at all.
Since we need to have some kind of image that is coherent, we have to reinvent ourselves somehow. We have to create a new self, incorporate in whatever is new.
I think that as you move and shift, you could do that from moving to a job to another, or from a clique to another. You know?
Yeah.
I think with mental health it happens so abruptly
And when you're
that
saying-
at first you're just nowhere, you're lost for the first little while after it happens, and then you have to rebuild. I think it's rebuilding that you have to do with mental health. To rebuild, you don't even know who you are after, because in the psychosis or whatever the problem is, it changes your personality, changes your behavior, changes the way you think, and then you go so crazy that you have to be hospitalized, and that all goes away. So then you don't know who you are anymore, because you remember the way you were when you were like normal, and then you remember the way you were when you were not well, but you're none of those things anymore.
That's what gets me, seeing how I was before. It gets me depressed. I know you can't go back, but we all want to go back. All I think about sometimes is going back before my back seized up on me when life was looking on me. But that's not good. It's not productive to think like that. You have to move on. Carry on and forget about the past. I threw out all my stuff too.
Right.
Got rid of all the clutter. Only things.
Was
that
it
I
for
need-
religious reasons?
No.
Why'd you do it?
For simplicity. I just have to do it gently, lightly.
Alright.
To Venus and Mars, from the sun and the stars. Such radiant light paints the ceiling of ours. Our moon filled with craters sits up there so silently, displaying the carnage that ravished it so violently. The moon is our guardian, our guide, our savior, controlling our moods, our minds, our behavior. When all said and done, look what we've become. A speck of dust in the celestial sea.
In the last week, I realized something. I've always been trying to, like, thinking if I stop my medication, maybe I can get to that higher level. Like, there's always this part of me that wants to get to a higher level, because when you're psychotic, you feel like you're at a higher level. That's my experience of it, like a higher religious, spiritual level. And I realized this week that there is no higher level. This is it. And the only higher level I could get would be a fake kind of higher level, with my brain chemistry going crazy and making me have spiritual ideas. There is no higher level, so my whole thinking was wrong. Like, there is a higher level, but there isn't. Like, for me, the higher level, like, I've always been wanting to say, well, why don't I stop my medications? At least I'll get to a higher level. But it's just, the only higher level for me would be to go psychotic again, and I don't want that.
First, I would like to talk about what it was like for me being hospitalized the first time at the being in a strange place, the emergency psych ward. I felt as if someone had taken something away from me, had tricked me, had fooled me, out of a basic right. I had always subconsciously been afraid of losing, out of a basic right, I had always subconsciously been afraid of losing, and that if I lost it, this basic right, it would be death. I always thought I magically deserved this right. So there I was in an oversized hospital gown, which did not feel as if it covered enough. My psychotic episode had been robbed, and they were telling me it was wrong, and I was wrong. I'd been bad. Now all of my basic rights as a human were removed. I lost free will, the exercise of it. The right to assert myself and to behave as I might, to dress in plain clothes of my own choice, to walk freely where I wanted, to have adventures. It is an adventure being on a psychotic episode. It's kind of like being on a drug. You lose the right to have familiar surroundings, your apartment. Instead, it's half a room with strangers who turn out to be not strangers on a level because they're going through what you're going through, so they become familiars. The intake interviews weren't fun for me. I felt misjudged, misdiagnosed, and misunderstood, and they kept changing the interviewers and doctors. At my previous intake they were convinced I'd been consuming drugs. They kept taking urine samples and saying I was lying, as if I were putting water in it to fool them so it could come back clean. The head doctor, a man, didn't like me. He told me I was English and I stank. He said they'd be keeping me for a long, long time. Then they told me I had to take a shower. There was no privacy. It was a male attendant, and that male attendant gave me the creeps. Then I had to have another shower. This time, a female attendant forgot to give me a soap before I undressed, so she came in with a bunch of guys. That was the most humiliating. Then they didn't say I had to take drugs. There was no negotiation. They just handed me the pills and the water. I didn't like the effects. I felt out of control of myself, drugged, in containment of myself. I didn't like being told I had to do anything except, especially not take pills. I hid and spat out the drugs. It was Zyprexa. I felt like a slave, no freedom. I felt like they were labeling me a bad girl just for being there. And I hated having to hide the fact that I didn't want to take the drugs. I was upset at my brother. He had gone in front of a judge with a neighbor who was harassing me. My brother left a package with them for me before I was even admitted. There were cookies, a toothbrush, and a carton of orange juice. I didn't want anything from him. I gave away the orange juice and put the cookies in my locker till I'd get rid of them later. I used the toothbrush because I was desperate. I felt agitated that guys who were also in the ward had crushes on me. This one guy was really annoying. Then they told me I had to take, I felt like there was nowhere to go in my little robe and this guy was bugging me. When they released me, 21 days or so later, it was a Saturday, so there were no doctors to write my prescription, so they said to come back and get one another day. I left the hospital. My friend who had said she would accompany me slept in, so she didn't make it. I left there alone. I walked to the judicial buildings in the old port with the silver domes. I felt weird on the drugs they'd been giving me. The colors outside seemed brighter. I felt weird as I walked across town. I had no money. I had nowhere to stay, so I arranged to stay at my friend Laura's house. That was good for my independence. My brother had offered that I stay at his house, but I was angry with him. He was crossing my boundaries and not respecting boundaries that should be respected because I say so. My friend Laura kept turning me against my brother too. My brother was happy that I was receiving treatment and on medication because I was calmer towards him. I was extremely angry with my brother because while my father was dying, I felt he was mean a couple of times and controlling. And after my father died, my father had left his will uneven. My brother was one of the executors. Needless to say, it wasn't a good situation. So I didn't have a good opinion of my brother, and whether he thought I needed medication didn't do any effect on me. In fact, perhaps I was rebelling against my brother. 3 years later, after never having taken medication outside of my hospital stay, I was hospitalized again. This time, when they discharged me, I didn't take my medication again. Then 8 months later, I was hospitalized yet again. This time, they put me on a medication which you inject about once a month. After being on that medication for a few months, I finally began to see more clearly. Then I could see the effect of the medication and its usefulness to me. I liked getting it by injection because that way I needn't take pills every day, which feels like a reminder that there is something wrong with me. Now they're in the process of switching me back to pills. But after all this, I have accepted that I need medication finally, and I am glad I have accepted it because it makes my life a lot easier.
Getting closer to where you used to be, a reference almost.
Right, and also seeing your flaws and
Yeah.
building up on that. I mean, people who aren't sick do that too.
Yeah. Self-realization.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is that they don't do that. That's what
Yeah.
a lot of them don't.
The thing I realize is I'm much
That's
more
what-
conscious of everything around me now. Before I didn't notice anything, and now I notice things. So I see things differently.
Just cleaning.
Just to be simple. If I have like three sets of clothes, that's all I need for the week. I don't need 10, So, and if I have, I just if something's laying down.
Yeah, but why simplicity? Where'd you get that idea from?
Because I was so stressed and my mind was so cluttered that just seeing clutter in my place there, seeing everything, it was too much for me. I had to just clean it out. It was too much of a responsibility knowing that I have all this stuff. What am I going to do with it? If I throw it out there, I don't have to worry about it anymore. That was my logic.
I found it nice to be part of a group of like people, and I felt very isolated in the experience before, and now I feel a little less isolated. And it's letting me know that I'm important and that I have rights and that I'm important.